Hello everyone! A lot of you have requested a video for the story of the Lich King, possibly my most requested video, but as I was working on the script, I realized that I couldn't tell you all the little details that were required, and that I had to split up the story in different videos. That's why I've decided to first go with the story of Ner'zhul. This will lead into the story of Arthas, and then we'll finish it off with the combined story of the Lich King. That means that we have a lot of things to talk about, so let's dive right into it and tell the story of Ner'zhul. At the beginning of our story, on the planet of Draenor, orcs and Draenei at the time, they lived in relative peace. They would occasionally trade with each other, but overall they didn't interact much and they left each other alone. Where the orcs were born on Draenor, the Draenei were not. They came from a planet called Argus, they were running away from the Legion, and one day they were forced to make a crash landing on the planet. The Draenei were on the run from Kil'jaeden and the Burning Legion as they'd refused to join Team Sargeras, and Kil'jaeden was pissed. He felt betrayed by his longtime friend and co-leader Velen the Prophet, and he had sworn that he would hunt them down even if it took him 1,000 years. Each time that Kil'jaeden and the Legion came close to the Draenei, Velen would be warned, and his people, with the help of the Naru, they would escape in time, leaving the Legion with empty hands. It's unknown what happened to the planets that the Draenei evacuated, but now on Draenor, they're stuck, they can't get away. The Naru K'ur, the one that rescued them in the first place, with the dimensional ship called Genadar, he'd fallen ill, which caused the crash landing in the first place, and this meant that they could no longer flee. Kil'jaeden did not know this, of course, and when he was told that the Draenei were found again, he decided that a change of tactics was required. Instead of sending the full might of the Legion and see the Draenei flee once again, he decided to deceive and corrupt the native race of orcs and use them to do his dirty work. His first victim, the one who he chose to make first contact with, was the orcish shaman Ner'zhul. Shamans played a very important role within the orcish culture, and Ner'zhul was the elder shaman. The orcs respected him, he was the chieftain of the Shadowmoon clan, and the closest thing that the orcs came to an overall leader. The shamans have a deep connection to the elements of the land, and sometimes they were actually able to make contact with the spirits of the deceased. Rokan, Ner'zhul's deceased mate, would sometimes appear in his visions, giving no words of wisdom, yet she would fill his heart with tenderness and opening him afresh to the needs of his people each time her spirit brushed his. Ner'zhul missed her rough laughter and her warmth beside him at night, but he was content with the way it was. As he made himself a potion, chanting softly over it, getting ready for one of these visions, he wondered if she would visit him tonight. The ritual did nothing to actually cause a vision for Ner'zhul, that was entirely up to the ancestors' will, but deep in Ner'zhul's heart, he longed to see his mate and his wish was granted. In his vision, he stood next to Rokan, standing on a mountaintop, observing the sun rise, and Ner'zhul's heart lifted. Rokan turned to her mate, smiling, and for the first time since he had exhaled her final breath as a living being, she spoke to him. "You have led our people well," she said, "but the time has come to deepen the old ways, take them further, for the good of all." The way that Rokan spoke with such authority alarmed Ner'zhul at first. Rokan had not been a chieftain, nor did she ever hold a position of power in life that would give her such authority. Annoyed at his lack of faith, Ner'zhul pushed the doubt away. He was not a spirit, so there was much that he did not understand about the spirit world. And why wouldn't Rokan speak for the ancestors? Understand that the ancestors were worshipped and respected by the shamans and the orcs, and Ner'zhul listened with great care as Rokan gave him a warning. She told him that the Draenei were a great threat to the orcs, a blight upon the world, and that they needed to be eliminated. Had Ner'zhul in that moment listened to his gut, he might have realized that the words were false. This vision was not Rokan feeding him information, they were actually the words of Kil'jaeden the Deceiver, using the orcs their faith and trust to place the orcs against the Draenei. He told Ner'zhul that the world would be theirs, and that Ner'zhul would lead all of them. The first step in the plan was to unite the orcish clans and form the Horde. The image of Rokan had been good enough to convince Ner'zhul, but convincing the other chieftains, that would be a little bit more difficult. The orcish clans, they didn't really wage outright war with each other, but some of them loved fighting a little bit too much, and they were not on friendly terms with other clans. A message was sent to all the chieftains to gather and listen to the dire warning Ner'zhul had received from the ancestors. At the foot of their sacred mountain they gathered, the mountain that they called Oshugan, but which was really the crash ship of the Draenei, with the Naru K'ur still trapped inside. Ner'zhul told them that their enemy was the Draenor, and naturally, most of the orcs, they couldn't believe that this was true. Especially the chieftain of the Frostwolf clan, Durotan, he could not believe that the Draenor would want to cause them harm. They had saved his and Orcam Doomhammer's life when they were just little orcish boys, yet the ancestors, they do not lie. Even Drekvar, the shaman of the Frostwolf clan, he confirmed to Durotan that it was true, that Mother Kesher herself had confirmed it, and Mother Kesher, she was the elder shaman of the Frostwolf clan before she passed away. Another fake vision of Kil'jaeden, but if there was anyone that Durotan trusted, it was the wise old orc Kesher. How easy it was to plant the seed of doubt, and that was all it took. Ner'zhul informed them that he did not ask them to directly go to war at this very moment. Instead, all he asked of them was to prepare. To discuss what the right course of action would be, to come together not as different clans, but as the same people. They were all orcs, wanting safe homes for their young, success in the hunt, mates who would love them, and honor amongst the ancestors. Despite his doubts, even Durotan agreed that the Frostwolf clan would prepare for war, start training, and the orcs took their first step towards eradicating the Draenor. Over time, the image of Rokan told Ner'zhul that there were other beings besides the ancestors and the elements that the living didn't know about. Ner'zhul desperately wanted to know what these beings were, but Rokan told him that he still drew breath and he wasn't ready to meet them yet. Ner'zhul pleaded to know that they needed their aid if they were to protect the future generations from the Draenor's insidious plots. But what he didn't mention was that he, deep down inside, he started to enjoy being the center of attention from every single orc in every single clan. He did not outright say that he had begun to desire the promised power and that his motives deep down were selfish, but he knew it himself, he felt deep inside. Rokan looked at him and said that perhaps he was right and it was time to meet them. She had also advised Ner'zhul to take a certain amount of herbs brewed to precise strength to keep his mind and spirit open to the visions. That was the explanation that they gave him, but it's most likely that this brew was designed to make Ner'zhul more vulnerable to their manipulations. As Ner'zhul took the bait and desired to see these beings that he had no knowledge of, Kil'jaeden stepped away from using the image of Rokan and he showed his true self to the orc. Ner'zhul was sad that his mate no longer appeared to him, but he quickly dismissed the feeling. Surely this being was far superior to even the shade of his beloved mate. And despite Kil'jaeden looking so very much like the Draenor, Ner'zhul drank in his words and he followed his orders. Orcs attacked Draenor with great ferocity and minimal casualties, since the Draenor, they simply didn't expect to be attacked out of nowhere. But their leader did not sit still. Velen the Prophet wanted to know what was going on with the orcs, why did they suddenly attack out of nowhere? And he sent a letter to Ner'zhul, asking him to join him in a holy pilgrimage to enter the heart of the mountain, the place both races found sacred, and ask wisdom of beings much wiser than them as to how they could heal the rifts. Kil'jaeden and Ner'zhul's apprentice Gul'dan, they were present when Ner'zhul received this message, and they were quickly on the offensive, but the word struck Ner'zhul and he did not immediately agree. He was not so eager to attack those who came unarmed and with the promise of trying to work together towards peace. They are not grun to kill unarmed foes, but despite that, he could not go against Kil'jaeden and Gul'dan, and he would not allow the Draenor to defile their sacred place. At Gul'dan's suggestion, he ordered Durotan of the Frostwolf clan to capture Velen and his people that joined him, so that Ner'zhul could speak with the prophets. Like I said, Durotan was once saved by the Draenor, and he did not agree with the path that the orcs were placed on, yet he couldn't refuse the order to capture Velen. Refusing to go along with all of this would mean almost certain exile, and this would endanger his clan, so he did what he was told, and he rode out to capture Velen. During their conversation, Velen tried to explain to Durotan why he wanted to reach the mountain, that there was a being inside, ancient and wise, that had long cared for the Draenor people. That this being was the reason why the spirits of their beloved dead, the spirits of the orcs, were drawn to this place, but that was exactly the wrong thing to say. The shaman Drekvar was outraged that Velen even tried to suggest such a thing, and the orcs present, they were ready to murder Velen on the spot. Durotan, he punched Drekvar across the face, told him to protect them, and despite his fury, Drekvar followed his warchief's command, and he used the elements to protect Velen and the Draenor. The prophet was now now a prisoner of the Frostwolf clan, just as Durotan was ordered to do, but the chieftain, he had a bad feeling about all of this. That night, he paid a visit to Velen, trying to find reason behind what he was told. Why were the Draenor planning to do them harm while the orcs had done nothing to them? And Velen, he simply reversed the question. Why had the orcs attacked the Draenor that had done nothing to the orcs? And Durotan was placed in an impossible position. Velen's words rang true, yet the ancestors and his traditions, the very foundations which were his life, told him otherwise. He decided to let Velen go, and he informed the prophet that when it came to it, if they would ever meet on the battlefield, he would stand at his people's side. Ner'zhul wanted a prisoner, but Durotan said that if he wanted one, he should have been there himself, and Velen was released. When Durotan made his report to Ner'zhul, Ner'zhul shrieked of outrage, and fear bubbled up inside him, since Kil'jaeden would not be pleased. The orcish shaman realized that the benevolent creature actually struck fear into his heart, and his mind started to wander as Durotan's words continued. He noticed Gul'dan's eyes fixed upon him, and another wave of fear washed over as his apprentice witnessed his first moments of doubt. Ner'zhul's mind drifted so far away that he didn't even realize that Durotan had finished talking, and he didn't know what to do. Durotan and the Frostwolf clan, they were well regarded amongst the other clans, so punishing them would have consequences. But he also couldn't let the Frostwolf chieftain get away with this, not after so many people supporting him in their war against the Draenor. Ner'zhul didn't know what to say, and the silence continued until Gul'dan spoke. My master is so overcome with rage that he cannot speak. You have disobeyed a direct order from your spiritual leader. Return to your camp, Durotan, son of Garant. My master will send you a letter shortly conveying his decision. Ner'zhul found his words, and he agreed with Gul'dan's plan, sending the Frostwolf chieftain home. Shortly afterwards, Ner'zhul informed Kil'jaeden of their failure, and naturally, the deceiver was furious. Ner'zhul quaked before that anger, prostrating himself on the earth, murmuring, "Forgive me!" as Kil'jaeden raged. Eventually, Kil'jaeden managed to compose himself again, and he told Ner'zhul to never again trust Durotan with an important task like that. They did take 2 of the Atamal crystals that Velen had carried with him, and these crystals, there were 7 in total, they all had great different powers. Ner'zhul informed Kil'jaeden about these crystals, about their minor victory, thinking that it might please the Great One, but to someone like Kil'jaeden, these crystals, well, they weren't worth anything. The crystals would be more used to the orcish people in their battles to come against the Draenor, as Kil'jaeden asked, "That is your battle, is it not?" Fear again clenched hard at Ner'zhul's heart. "Of course, Lord, it is the ancestors' will." Kil'jaeden looked at him for a moment, his brilliant eyes emanating flames. "It is my will," he said simply, and Ner'zhul nodded frantically. Of course, it is your will, and I obey you in all things." The next few months, the orcs would continue fighting against the Draenor, and Ner'zhul received message after message informing him about these battles, little casualties, great conquest, the ecstasy of blood spilled. The orcs grew more skilled at killing the Draenor, but Ner'zhul's doubts grew and grew. He tried to fight back his suspicions, terrified that somehow Kil'jaeden was able to read his thoughts, but they came like maggots writhing from a corpse to hunt his sleeping and waking thoughts. Kil'jaeden looked very, very similar to a Draenor. Was it possible that they were somehow the same? And was he, Ner'zhul, being used in some sort of civil war? The thoughts came until Ner'zhul could take it no more, and he decided to make a trip to the sacred mountain to find some wisdom. He stepped towards the pool. He made his offer, waiting for the ancestors to appear, but nothing happened. He did not panic right away. Sometimes the ancestors took their time about responding, but when more time had passed, unease began to sit in Ner'zhul's heart. Ancestors, beloved dead, I, Ner'zhul, shaman of the Shadowmoon clan, leader to your children, have come seeking, no, begging wisdom. I have lost my way to your light. The times are dark and fearful, even as we grow stronger, more united as a people. I question the path I am on, and I beseech your guidance. Please, if you have ever loved and cared for those who have followed in your footsteps, come to me now and advise me that I may lead them well. The pool began to glow, and in the water he saw a face looking back at him, the face of his beloved Rokan, but with pain in his heart he realized that she was looking at him with a face filled with hatred. Other faces began to appear, dozens of them, all with the same expression, and nausea welled inside Ner'zhul as he cried out, "Please, help me, grant me your wisdom that I may win favor again in your eyes." Rokan's features softened somewhat, and it was with a trace of compassion in her voice that she spoke. "There's nothing you can do, not now, not in 100 years, to win favor in our eyes. You are not a savior of your people, but their betrayer." As the ancestors turned their back on him, Ner'zhul realized what a fool he had been, how easily he had let himself be deceived. On his way back, he tried to come up with plans to turn it all around, to bring the orcs back to the right path, but his apprentice Gul'dan, he had other plans in mind. Gul'dan had followed Ner'zhul to the mountain, had seen all that transpired, and he informed Kil'jaeden that Ner'zhul was about to betray him. Kil'jaeden was mad, of course, but punishment could wait, as Gul'dan was now chosen to follow Kil'jaeden's plans, while Ner'zhul was forced to watch as they corrupted and manipulated his people even further. From that moment on, Ner'zhul's story would be watching as his apprentice Gul'dan stepped into the spotlight. Gul'dan had always had a lust for power, so there was no reason to play games. Kil'jaeden could simply be honest with Gul'dan, and Gul'dan had no problem with using his people to benefit himself. The elements eventually banned the orcs, since even they recognized that a war against the Draenor was not the right way. In exchange, Gul'dan offered the orcs a new source of power, fel magic, and the first orcish warlocks were created. They used this fel magic, these warlock powers, to literally suck the life out of their children, magically age them, and produce fighters at a much faster rate. Blackhand was appointed to be the first war chief of the now officially formed Horde, but in truth, it was actually Gul'dan running the show with his Shadow Council. The war against the Draenor went as planned, until only their city of Shefrev remained. For this final battle, Kil'jaeden sent Manoroth down to offer his blood, granting the orcs incredible power, but also turning them into slaves. All the while, Ner'zhul was forced to watch, but the wolf still had some teeth. He wrote a message to Durotan, who was against Gul'dan and all that the Horde did, but again, he couldn't speak out. Ner'zhul warned Durotan not to accept Gul'dan's so-called gift, so the Frostwolf clan, they refused to drink, while the other chieftains, like Romar's Hellscream, they embraced his gift willingly. With the demon blood pumping in their veins, the orcs stormed Shefrev, murdering every Draenor, man, woman and child that they could find. Kil'jaeden saw the slaughter and figured that his plans were successful, that Velen the Prophet had finally been taken care of, so he left Draenor and he left the orcs to their fate. Prophet Velen and the Draenor, they'd realized that the Burning Legion was behind their war with the orcs, so they decided to leave a few of their people behind in Shefrev, and these were quite a lot of people since they had to make it look like a lot of Draenor were still left behind, while the rest of them hid away in Zangar Marsh. The use of fel magic and the war had corrupted and nearly destroyed the planet of Draenor. Lands had dried out, water was hard to find, food was limited. All around, the Horde started to rise up against Gul'dan, who had led them down this path. Thankfully for Gul'dan, the corrupted guardian Medivh, he made contact with him and he showed him the world of Azeroth, a land with water, food and plenty of enemies to give the orcs a good fight. The promise of a world to conquer led to the first orcish Horde invasion, but Ner'zhul was not invited to this party. As Gul'dan and the Horde took down Stormwind, Orgrim Doomhammer, he found out about Gul'dan's corruption and that Blackhand was being used as his puppet. He challenged Blackhand to leadership of the Horde, he won that battle and he was trying to guide the Horde back to a more honorful way while still trying to conquer the planet of Azeroth. They simply needed this planet, so Doomhammer, even though he was honorful, he still tried to conquer the planets. This meant that Gul'dan, he was no longer in a real position of power, but he wasn't done scheming just yet. He created the first of the Death Knights, amongst them Terrangor. He created Ogre Magi. He abandoned the Horde in a critical moment of the war, and this caused them to lose the siege of Lordaeron. Eventually losing this siege meant that the Horde was pushed back all the way to the Blackrock Mountain, and there they were eventually defeated by the Alliance of Lordaeron. Like I said, Gul'dan didn't care about his people. All he wanted was power, and he believed that he could find that power in the tomb of Sargeras. But all he found there was his own demise.
I am Gul'dan. I am darkness incarnate. It cannot end like this.
The Alliance followed the escaping orcs to the location of the Dark Portal. Khadgar closed it, as some of the orcs they stepped through the portal to return home to Draenor, but they were defeated. Ner'zhul and the orcs left behind, they saw the retreating orcs. The Death Knight Terrangor informed Ner'zhul of what had happened, as their gateway to a better future was shut down by Khadgar. In the name of the ancestors, what would they do now? Ner'zhul thought to himself, and for 2 years he would lose himself to despair. Khadgar tried to completely sever the connection between Draenor and Azeroth, but the magic that they used, it was simply too strong, and eventually the Horde, led by Ner'zhul, they would find a way to return for a second invasion. However, I'll save that story for next time, as I think we've been going on for long enough. Next week, we'll talk about the events of the second invasion, the Horde trying to collect powerful artifacts, and the Alliance of Lordaeron once again trying to stop them. We'll even take a look at what Ner'zhul's alternate version has done during Wars of Draenor, but like I said, that will be for next week. For now, thank you very much for watching everyone, subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time guys, see ya!